My name is Jerome Siangco. I currently live outside of Seattle, Washington. I graduated from Holy Cross in 2019. And while at Holy Cross, through community-based learning, or CBL, I was involved with the Notre Dame Healthcare Center, the Marie Ann Center, the Worcester County Food Bank, and the Nativity School of Worcester. Thinking back to the summer before coming to Holy Cross, I knew I wanted to be involved in some form of community engagement, some form of community service. And when choosing my Montserrat course, my top five preferences, four out of the five had a community-based learning or CBL component, because I thought it was a great way, one, to be able to engage in community service, but then also tie that back into the academic experience. So I was excited to find out when coming to Holy Cross that my Montserrat course would have a CBL component. So my first year, I was in Professor Ginny Ryan's Exploring Difference and Modifying Technology Montserrat, where I was able to work with the Notre Dame Healthcare Center, going weekly to hospice visits, sitting side by side with residents, and being involved in the community that way. Uh, Going on to my second year, I took another CBL course that allowed me to be involved with the Marie Ann Center, an after-school program. So those were my first experiences with CBL, two different populations, the elderly and then the young and the children in the community. But it was my junior and senior year where I was really able to see that growth, where it went from me being involved with community partners to finally being able to take action and organize around an issue or a need that a community partner expressed or that I learned through being involved. So my junior year, I was able to organize for the Worcester County Food Bank a project, an initiative as part of one of my classes where I saw a need for donations to the food bank in regards to culturally appropriate food or food that meets more of the needs of the populations of different communities in Worcester. So it went from my first and second year to listening to what the needs of the community to my junior year where I was able to grow and take initiative, organize, and have other people involved, both in the Holy Cross community and the surrounding Worcester community, to organize and take action on a need to donate culturally appropriate food. So it went from listening to taking action is how I really grew, and my perspective on service shifted from me wanting to be involved to allowing the community to explain to me how I can best be involved and be of service. Being involved in CBL and in the community, it allowed me to apply what I was learning in the classroom alongside peers and professors and applying it into actual work, service in the community. And through that two parts of my Holy Cross experience, that academic and the community engagement, I was able to see what I was passionate about. What I really enjoyed most was when I could apply what I was learning to my community engagement activities. And that led me to figure out what I liked, what I didn't like. And after graduating from Holy Cross, I ended up joining the Peace Corps, where I was able to continue community engagement, but more on an international scope, going over to China to serve in a local community there. And a lot of it reflected what I learned through CBL. That my first couple months in the Peace Corps was all about listening and learning and really trying to learn the needs of my community. That was really part of the foundation for me of CBL, was just listening and trying to learn instead of inputting myself in a new community and deciding what I needed to do. It shifted, and from CBL I learned to listen, and that was really powerful post Holy Cross when I had to listen to a new community. And then after the Peace Corps, trying to listen to my own needs, but also what was I passionate about, and that was community engagement. So that ties into my grad program. Into Holy Cross, my conception of what I saw as service was that I could visually see a tangible result, that I could see that I was helping somebody else, or that I was actively engaging the community. Where I really had to learn the importance of listening was my first CBL experience in my Montserrat course with the Notre Dame Healthcare Center, where I worked in hospice, where a lot of what I did in hospice was sitting with a resident in a hospice care facility for 3 hours a week and just being present. And to be honest, that I really struggled my first year with trying to see the benefit I was providing, or the tangible result that I had actively sought prior when performing community service. In that struggle, it really helped to have resources like the CBL office, Isabel, the CBL interns, and my professor, Professor Ryan. Really, through conversations with all of them, I started to learn the importance of being present. Of It's okay if I'm not seeing tangible results, because sometimes the result itself isn't tangible. It can't be seen, but it's more so the power of being present in the moment, of having that care and thought to engage in community engagement in whatever needs the community has. And even though I wasn't getting a tangible result, I was still engaging in how a community partner needed me to be engaged. And I was able to listen to their needs and then just be present in the moment while forming or while performing this community engagement. One of the biggest struggles I had was with Worcester. There are so many ways to become involved in engagement that I struggled to find something that really connected with me, that was passionate. A lot of my engagement activities were based on personal experiences of mine that I found personal. And being involved in hospice was because a lot of my family members are elderly, that I wanted to utilize and learn more experience or skills to engage with people who are older, who are closer to death. Working in hospice care, a lot of the residents only had a few days or weeks to live. So that was one struggle I found, was finding ways that were passionate, that I didn't want to simply be involved in a community partner, that I wanted to align with a passion of mine. But then another struggle, and this is where I had to rely on resources the CBL office had, was going week in, week out into a community engagement activity that I really lost sight of what I was doing. That my first year working in hospice care, it was hard every couple of weeks going from one resident to another and trying to form deep connections with these individuals, but then having to be partnered with a new one. And with a loss of connection, I really struggled with how I was making an impact in the community. But it was through, especially Professor Ginny Ryan, that I was able to understand how uh, maybe I wasn't feeling like I wasn't getting any benefit out of it, or I wasn't benefiting the community. But the benefit in itself was being present in the moment, even in silence, and just having that engagement of listening to even silence, that I was able to be present and be some form of comfort to another individual, just through being present where no one else was present. The challenge in itself really motivated me to reflect more and think more of my own values of why did I perform a community engagement, and what were really my reasons for wanting to be involved in the community. Even though I struggled a lot my first year, there was a lot of strength and power in that struggle, where my mindset shifted a lot from how I viewed community engagement, from how it went from me actively trying to be involved in the community to allowing the community to really dictate to me and tell me how I can be of most help. So even though I struggled, I learned the power of listening and really being open to the possibilities and the opportunities the community has to offer. And from that first year experience, being open, my next 3 years at Holy Cross, I became involved in several other CBL classes and community partners that really showed the breadth of Worcester's population, that I was able to meet so many unique individuals, listen and hear their stories. And it really shows to the complexity and the vastness that is Worcester, that there's so much to offer. And students, the Worcester community can offer so much to students, much more than any single student can offer to the community itself. The idea of being for and with others, I think back a lot to my Montserrat experience, where we learned about a circle of inclusion, of how we can all draw a circle around ourselves, and people within the circle are maybe our friends, our family, people that we feel comfortable around and that are involved in the same activities that we are in. But there are people outside of that circle, people outside of people we interact with on a day-to-day basis, people excluded. And you can think of a circle of inclusion in so many different ways of community resources, community engagement. So when I think of the idea of being for and with others, I think about how to rid this idea of a circle of inclusion, of how to form an inclusive community, with not only wanting to bring people inside of the circle, but how do you step outside of that circle to reach members of the community that are being excluded? And in regards to my community engagement and the idea of for and with others, I really took it upon myself to be engaged in activities that I might not necessarily feel comfortable with. That to be able to go outside of my own circle of inclusion or circle of comfortableness and really step outside and try to listen and learn from another's perspective of how whatever activity or issue that their take or their perspective on it, so I can learn and be part of their circle of inclusion and of bringing everyone along with me and trying to learn as much as possible from other people. Can I share two experiences?
Yes.
Okay. I think two experiences that I remember the most is, the first one is my first experience with CBL. My first time going to the Notre Dame Healthcare Center and meeting a resident. I was extremely nervous. This was maybe 3 years into my Holy Cross year. So I was a first year student and I was extremely nervous. I was by myself. I had orientation the week prior, but that orientation was at Holy Cross. So this is my first time going into the Worcester community to a new location. And the director for the health center introduced me to this resident, and we sat for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. And over time, we began coloring, and we didn't say a lot of words that first time. I tried to stay low, start conversations, but for the most part, we just colored in silence. And I remember being so nervous, not knowing if the resident was going to like me, if he was going, or if I was, of course I was going to like him because I was excited, but I wasn't sure if he was going to take to me or really like me. But that experience of first meeting somebody really stuck with me, as even though I was really nervous, I was also really excited. And I think that's how I took every opportunity I had, with both excitement and nervousness. Fast forward 3 years later, my second experience that has really stuck out to me was my junior year, when I had a project-based course where it was based on community organizing, learning the needs of the community and then organizing around that need. Another of my classmates, Cassie and I, we worked with the Worcester County Food Bank of trying to donate culturally appropriate foods. A lot of that had to do with organizing, meaning meeting members of the community, seeing how they can be involved and what they had to offer to our campaign. And meeting residents of Worcester, of places that can donate culturally appropriate foods, allowed us to meet a lot of different community members. And the experience I want to share is of going to a specific store that had foods that were culturally appropriate, that these were foods from different countries around the Middle East and Western Asia that were more of what people from these areas who had moved to Worcester that they were used to eating, that these foods were very specific, and just engaging in conversation about this is what we were trying to do, this is how you can help, really turned out to be a great relationship to have, that this store owner ended up donating some of the produce in his store to contribute to Cassie and I's campaign of donating culturally appropriate food. So I just think the relationships that I was able to form there through community organizing was very powerful and rememberable to my CBL experience. Biggest piece of advice I would offer is to be open to what Worcester has to offer. There are so many opportunities and ways to be involved in the community that even if you're really eager to go and you know you want to do some form of community service or community engagement, be open to the breadth of community partners that are in Worcester, that you can really discover new possibilities and new opportunities all 4 years while at Holy Cross to be involved. And some things, as I've come to learn, have really surprised me of how I was able to find engagement in the community. Really, through both the CBL fair, Isabel, the CBL interns, there are really there are a plethora of community partners that you can be involved with during your time at Holy Cross through CBL. And through partnering your community engagement with a course, a professor, and your peers, it allows you to go deeper into that experience, that it's not solely an activity that you do for 3 hours a week, but it's something that you bring back into your coursework, into your daily life at Holy Cross, and that you can think more deeply about and analyze from the perspective of whatever you're learning about in class.